Good evening. I will call this meeting to order. If you would kindly stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you kindly call the roll?
Laffin.
Here.
Regan.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Tata.
Here.
Marone.
Here. So the format for tonight is going to be a little bit different than it's been in the past. This is the evening for departments with specific questions from the council that the council wanted to talk to. So we're just going to call out the lines in the budget. Those of you that are guests, that are department heads, appreciate your attendance. You may or may not be required depending on the nature of the question, but that's between, you and the mayor as far as how that's going to work. So the first one we're going to start with is going to be capital approach, and we'll hold all public questions to the end, so the public will have an opportunity to ask questions, but we'll save that to the end. So the first one is going to be capital appropriations and reserve. Questions on that? Councilor Tata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just so we're all on the same page, I'm looking at page 89 of the budget book. My general question on this page is if all of the projects that are listed here are actually happening, if any of them have been closed out since this budget was submitted, and if we anticipate the full expenditure of the bottom line, which is $1,070,164.
Good evening.
Evening.
So this page is capital that was carried forward from the prior year, plus capital this year that hasn't been spent yet. So these projects could be finished throughout the end of the year, and then this is what you appropriate tonight, that 1 million, not tonight, but this 1,070,164 is the highest it can be. But when the year's closed out, I go through all these accounts, and any money that's spent does not get appropriated, because then we'd be double spending. So they'll all be reduced, or if they haven't been spent, they haven't been spent.
So that money would automatically go back to the general fund, or these are the projects that get put on that list that we get by February 1st?
No, this is not part of the cap and non.
Okay.
This is general fund capital projects, and then they either lapse, or we do this so that they don't lapse.
Okay,
but the projects would be gone.
Got it. So automatically, if there's leftover money or if something doesn't happen, it just automatically goes back to the general fund.
Correct. So usually I contact them, I try to get them to spend, throughout the year, So these are, I went through it and I thought these were projects that were still ongoing that probably needed to be carried forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I have for that, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else on this topic? Okay, moving on to Board of Assessment Appeals. Councilor Tata?
Yes, so let me just get to that page. So we're on page 19 of the budget book. My question on this one was I had never realized before, this might just be my own lack of realizing in the past, but it looks like this commission or this board gets a stipend, and I don't recall, I thought the only boards or commissions that received stipends were Town Council and Public Utilities Commission. So when I realized this year, I just had never realized it before, but I also noticed that it looks like every year that stipend is fluctuating. So year ended 2024, it looks like $6,978 was spent in their salary line, which I assume is the stipends because that's the only thing I see on the following page. And then the next year, I'm sorry, the current year, it looks like it's $14,000. And then for this proposed budget, they requested 8,000 and the mayor approved 8,000. So I just wanted to know a little bit about the history of that, why they're getting a stipend, why the fluctuation in the rate. I'm not sure who's here to answer that.
So I can answer that for you.
Okay.
Well, some of that. I mean, since they've always gotten a stipend, it's always been in the budget. It really only fluctuates on the year of revaluation. So it's usually 8,000 in all the budgets, and then it gets bumped up in year of revaluation because there's almost twice the amount of work.
So how many meetings per year do they typically have? I mean, I know that they would have the appeals, they meet for the car taxes once. How often are they meeting?
Kev, can you come up and answer that?
It's Kevin Coons, the assessor. Board of Assessment Appeals meets the first Saturday, I believe, in September. And they also meet during the month of March. This year, there were about 240 appeals total. Not all of those were heard by the Board of Appeals because many of those were over $1 million. So, but the volume was quite heavy this year for the board. So, for this past March.
And they get paid extra because it was the reval year. So in a non-reval year, so basically every 3 years, they're probably meeting twice per year. Does that sound about right? The September and the March.
Correct. We do a revaluation every 5 years, so.
Or 5, I'm sorry.
1 out of 4.
Okay.
So they're budgeted for 2,000 each, and then there's a recording secretary. So depending on how much she works. So of that 8,000, 6,000 is for the board members, 2,000 is for the recording secretary.
Okay, and then in the reval year, how does that shift?
So that was probably, was it 14? It was probably 12,000 for the stipends and 2,000 for the recording secretary.
So they would each be getting 4,000 in the reval year. I mean, right? Yeah, 4,000?
Yes.
Okay, so do we know the history of how that, I mean, I know there's other boards and commissions that meet much more frequently that don't receive stipends, so I just not sure what the history is, why this board receives them and others do not.
I do not know that.
Do you know that, Mr. Coons? Or
They've received stipends since I've been here, and I've been here almost 20 years. So,
it's just always been that way? Okay.
yeah, so I don't know the history.
Okay. All right, that is all I have on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Coons, appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else on this topic? Okay, well, next we'll go to Capanan.
Is that me again?
Counselor Tata?
Great. All right, so 2 pages here. So page 23 and then again on page 83. So I'll start on 23. I'm sorry, actually, we'll go right to 83. All right, I'm assuming this is for Mr. Senna, but correct me if I'm wrong. The transfer is the line item transfer general fund. So I know we have the electric division pilot, but then there's a line item transfer general fund. And it looks like 500,000 was expended in 2020, the fiscal year ending 2024, then nothing currently, and then a request of 390,136 this year, which the mayor approved in his budget. So I'm assuming that's just a choice that the administration makes, and that's in order to balance, to make all the projects on the next page to get those paid for.
So the 500,000 in the prior year, the Public Works needed more money for paving.
Okay.
So that's what that, so his paving account is in the cap and non. So you guys approved that transfer,
Yes.
and that's how that went there. So as we kind of discussed last night, the electric revenue keeps going down. You know, conservation's great, but it's generated on the cost. There's a formula that the electric division gives me that number. So, but that number keeps dwindling, and the projects keep getting more and more. So to fund the projects on the other page, the first number is the electric division number, and then we needed the 390,136 to fund the rest of those projects.
Okay. Okay, so if one of those, all right, I understand. So,
This 21010 that's coming out of here, that's gonna tie to the revenue of the
Yeah.
cap and non-fund.
okay. So basically, if we took that, if we did not take that transfer of 390 from the general fund, we would have to then go to the next page and pick $390,000 worth of projects that we would not be doing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then on that list of projects, this, I'm not sure who these questions are gonna be for, depending on what line, but, the brick paver replacement, that is not in this year, but it is scheduled for, it looks like every other year. This might be for Mr. Beltramitis, who was here last night, but, not a question, but more of a comment. I know the, oh, maybe we do have somebody, I'm sorry. How are you?
How are you? Allison Kapuscinski, Town Engineer.
Thank you very much. The brick pavers, are we actually replacing with bricks, or have we looked at maybe doing stamped concrete that looks like bricks? Because I know the weeds and the maintenance of the bricks has been an issue.
So that line item is funded for the resetting of brick pavers. So we do have to, replace some bricks, but the goal is to remove the bricks, clean up the area, and put the same bricks back.
Okay.
So it's really for the labor. There is a little bit of material costs in there too.
Okay, so that's more maintenance of the existing ones. Okay,
Exactly.
perfect. I'm just gonna go through what I think might be yours. The downtown parking lot improvements, that's $80,000 for this year. I'm assuming, I think we talked about these last night, I'm assuming these are the ones that are behind, on Center Street, those rear lots, is that accurate?
I don't know that we know that a lot of them need to be addressed. So I don't know that we've picked exactly which ones. It's kind of a fluid plan as far as I know. It will be a combined effort with me and Public Works.
Okay, so then the 80,000, that's just, where did that number come from if we don't have the projects chosen yet?
I think just to get us started, we think we could at least, repave some stuff, but, maybe some need a guardrail. Some could use some other improvements as well. So to try to get us, going in the right direction.
Okay, so that's kind of just earmarked for that, and then you'll decide how far that money will get you, basically.
I think so, yeah. And there's always an opportunity to look for other funding as well and use that as part of a match.
Okay, got it. The Gregory Road sidewalk extension, would you be able just to talk about that? So it looks like it's 70,000 in this budget and then 280,000 earmarked for next year.
Yeah, so that project, we estimated to be $350,000. Because there was, as you could tell, there were quite a bit of projects to be done this year. Rather than picking and choosing whether we go with, the traditional sidewalk replacement program or this Gregory Road sidewalk extension, the strategy that the administration came up with was to fund 20% of it now and look for a grant this year. So then we'd have the match already here. And then the grants always want you to have the entire project funded in the capital improvement plan. So it would show there, we'd say, here's the rest of the funding, but hopefully get something from them and then see if that works out.
Okay, and that's to expand, I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with that project. This is an expansion?
Yeah, so right now there's no sidewalks on Gregory Road. And so we're going to hopefully install sidewalk from Highland to Johnson. And then I believe it goes up maybe 3 houses on Highland. I don't have the plans with me, but it's about that scope.
Was this the one that we were hearing about? There were people a few years ago, or
Yeah,
the speed of cars,
Yep.
had concerns? Okay, all right, perfect. All right, thank you. And I apologize, I think that did come up last night, so I'm sorry if that was redundant. This one, I know about the library parking lot repairs we did discuss last night. I think that's all I have for that. Yes, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else on this topic? Thank you, Ms. Kapuscinski. Moving on to next, we'll go to pension. We can do pension, employee insurance together. Good evening.
Hello, everybody. Jim Hutt, Town HR Director.
Councilor Tata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do, let me do pension first and then see if anyone else has anything, and then we'll
Yeah, either
go
way.
to the next, okay. Get to the right page here. Okay, so we're on page 27. Mr. Hutt, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, I should have looked it up myself, but in the most recent audit, were there, I know there's not a surplus in the pension because it's obviously a fluid account, but does it look like, how does it look like we're funding this? Does it look like we have too much in it, not enough in it? What's the state of the pension fund, basically?
State of the pension fund or the line item? Because the pension fund is something different.
Okay,
So that's run through the pension commission.
right.
So if you're looking at the line items on page 27, I can tell you how we get there.
Okay, yeah, so,
Yeah,
so
so-
you don't want, yeah, you're not here to speak on the health
Sure.
of the pension, but, yeah.
So what we do is, we do preliminary numbers when we're getting ready to submit the budget to the finance department for the mayor's review. And once we're done with that, the mayor and Tim go through the budget, and Tim will then let us know what positions on the town side are going to be funded and what that amount is. And that includes full-time and part-time positions. So then what we do is we roll those numbers up, we add in the what the Board of Ed provides us for their payroll for the consolidated pension plan. We do pay for the Board of Ed's pension contributions.
Okay.
And then those amounts get rolled up, and we calculate the pension contribution for the town and the Board of Ed, which this year is 25.3%, and Medicare and Social Security for those wage amounts, Social Security for part-timers 6.2%, and Medicare for everybody who's covered 1.45%. So that's how we come up with this. And then our actuary gives us the value of what we put into the LoSAP program.
Okay. So, thank you for that. That's very helpful. I didn't realize that the Board of Ed pension is also on this side. So is that typical for municipalities that would not be part of the Board of Ed's budget? Because I'm assuming that's a large part of this.
And it's like 12 million.
Yeah.
I can get the number for you.
Okay, yeah, I don't need it right now.
But
It's-
just to clarify, so that doesn't include teachers though, because
That does not include teachers.
Right.
No, it's just the non-certified personnel that are covered under the mayor's statutes.
Okay,
But it wouldn't be 12 million, Jim. The whole line item was 12 million.
Hold on, let me see.
So the 25.3 is also determined by the actuaries.
and the 25.3, what number is that, are you referring to?
So for on the town side, anyone who's in the pension, all the salary. So every time we run payroll, 25.3% will come out and go into the pension fund every week.
Okay,
Yeah, so I can tell you the Board of Ed payroll that we use to set the pension contribution is 12,810,362.
okay,
That's what we get from the Board of Ed.
Oh, sorry, that's the total payroll number. Sorry.
okay. And then it's the same percentage from that, the
That's at
25.3?
25.3%,
Okay,
yes.
all
Yep.
right. Is that, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, if this is more for the pension commission, but the 25.3, is that typical? Is that like a normal range for municipality? That seems awfully high, but I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just typical.
You know, that's probably a question for the actuaries.
Okay.
But considering we've made some assumption changes over the years, the interest credit assumptions dropped from 8%. I think we're down to 7%, Tim, right now. And the amortization rate went from, I think, 25 to 24 years. So we're paying more to pare down what we owe.
Okay. I assume that's something that you're looking at with contracts. I mean, because I don't,
So,
It-
and employee
yeah.
wages, wage increases, you know, brings this number up as well, you know.
yeah. Okay. Admittedly, this is a subject I'm not very well versed in. I don't really understand, pension, like the workings of all of that, but my concern always is that, it becomes unaffordable or unsustainable over time because it's a large amount of money. Just this page alone is $12 million. So that's annually, almost $12 million that we're paying into this. So it's a huge chunk of the budget. I think that's all I have on the pension.
So just to, if I may, just to clarify, so the pension contribution is simply the payroll multiplied times the actuarial percentage, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's that simple. So as we increase staff, that's just naturally going to go up.
That's correct.
And so the percentage could vary by year, but that has to do with market performance and et cetera, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Correct. It's a complicated,
Right.
so there's two ways you can do it. They can calculate that the match is $11 million, and some towns just put in the $11 million. Or the way we do it is if the payroll's not fully there, you're not paying extra, right? So we're only paying what we're required to pay on the actual employees. Whereas if we just took I'm just making up numbers, but if they said 11 million is what's required, your required contribution, and we always make the required contribution. So we could just put the 11 million in, or we could do it the way we do it. We find it more efficient to do it the way we do it.
Okay, no, understood. Anytime you say the word actuary, it becomes very complicated, right? So does that mean then that is this a fixed budgeted amount in that this is what we're going to spend? Or if we don't spend the payroll, do we then adjust the payment based on the actual payroll spend?
So this is, if every position was filled for every week, this is what we would pay.
Okay.
So this,
No, that answers my question. Thank you. Any other questions on this one? Yep, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hutt, in the part of the world that I live in, we deal with loaded costs of employees, right? Do we have any semblance of is it a 1.5 factor? Is it somewhere on that scale that we can say for pension eligible employees, our costs are X, so that when we take a look at headcount, we can adjust, that number, then that math becomes less complex.
So I think the 25.3% is the number you would use for pension.
Okay. But as far as a general, is it, you've got the FTE cost is the FTE cost. So that's a 1X factor. And now we've got, personal cell phones, you've got any number, or work cell phones, you've got any number of different things, benefits included in that conversation. Is there a target number that we work towards?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else on this topic? All right, moving on. And Jim, hang on a minute. So the other one was pension and then employee insurance and other benefits. Councilor Tata?
Thank you. So this is on page 28 I'm looking at. A couple questions on this one. So under the program description, it says longevity and annual payment based upon years of service for general government employees except fire, police, public works, and public utilities. Why are those specific departments exempt from that?
I do not know. This is how it's been since I started here. My guess is that because they reside outside of town hall, but we've always budgeted for everybody but these departments for longevity.
Okay, and what's the,
so those departments get longevity, it just gets paid out of their own department.
Correct. They have their own
Say that
line
again,
item.
I'm sorry.
So the firefighters that are eligible, they get longevity, it just gets paid out of the fire department budget.
Okay, so all of those other departments do
Yes, they,
receive it, it's just-
yes, they get it, it's not paid out of this line item.
Okay, all right, thank you, that makes sense. Is that also the same, the next line down, it says the town provides life and health insurance for its employees in accordance with union contract provisions. Other benefits such as employee assistance program, tuition reimbursement, and training are included. So that would be for, everybody would be budgeted in.
So we budget for everybody for life and health insurance, except utilities.
Okay,
Employee assistance program, we budget for the town. Utilities, police and fire have their own separate programs. And tuition reimbursement, we budget for the town employees.
okay,
And police and fire, they have their own tuition language in their contracts.
okay. So basically, every department has these benefits, it's just a matter of who's paying or where the money's coming from.
So from the town side, tuition reimbursement, non-police, non-fire, that's only limited to management employees.
Okay, understood, thank you.
And you'll notice the longevity keeps going down because new hires are not eligible. So as people retire, they're off the books, and then,
Okay, so that's what we use to
so
offer
eventually
them.
that's gonna get to zero.
Okay. This came up last night, Mr. Hutt. The fire department switched their health insurance, I believe, last year. Do you know how much that saved the town?
So, as you know, we're in contract negotiations with fire right now. When we did move, the initial move, back in 2023, I believe it was, July of 2023, what our insurance consultant projected for 1 year, I believe it was close to $300,000.
Okay. And are there programs like that other departments might be able to enter into? I've heard that there's state plans possibly, like state health insurance plans. Is that anything that different, I'm sure each union and each contract will be different, but is that something that we might look into or that they would want to look into to try to save some money and get them on different plans?
So we're in negotiations with a variety of unions. From time to time, insurance proposals come from these unions that are not the town's plan. Right now, the only bargaining unit that has insurance outside of the town is the firefighters.
Okay. And then I'm also assuming if we lose too many, then would that make the town plan more expensive because now your pool is diminished?
That may happen. We would have to get those, that information from our insurance consultant.
Okay, so it's kind of a catch-22. Okay. Another benefit, I don't see it listed here, but I've heard that some departments have it, military buyback. Is that anything that departments are offered or any levels are offered?
So back before, some union, some pension contracts have that provision for employees hired as of a certain date. Okay. For the most part, that has been discontinued. Police and fire never had military buyback that I know of. And the reason being is they already worked 23 and 22 years. So, but those unions have never had military buyback, but all the others did at one point. I'm not sure that they have it right now. I think maybe some employees do, but then others do not.
Okay. So that would be something that would be negotiated at the union,
That's
union
correct.
contract
Yeah,
level.
that would
Okay.
have to be negotiated, have to be costed. And,
Okay.
But yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That is all I have for that page, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anyone else on this topic? We'll go on next then to property casualty insurance.
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask, what's left on the list? I have several department heads here, and I just want to see which ones we can
Sure,
dismiss.
so we have mayor, finance, general fund revenue, debt service, contingency.
Okay,
And then we have a general question about the telephones.
so, yeah. It looks like recreation and engineering can leave.
Yes, yep, I think we're all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your attendance. Next, now we're on property casualty. Councilor Tata?
Okay, so page 29. So this, I'm assuming, this is what it is, right? The insurance bill comes and there's not much we can do about this, I'm assuming, correct?
So what you're looking at is the projected premiums for the insurance policies the town has.
Okay, so we don't have them yet. This is our estimate of what they're going to be.
No, we don't receive the actual premium invoices until July 1st. We're currently in the renewal cycle, filling out our applications for renewal.
Okay, and then in the past, do you know historically, have we usually been pretty close to our projections? Are we usually over?
There have been years where the projections have been slightly higher than the actual premiums. But again, we're projecting these several months before the actual renewal data goes in. So there's a lot of factors that are involved in the actual renewal that will ultimately present with the premium.
Okay. And my only other question on here, I might have a couple actually. The insurance deductible. So I noticed a couple departments have their own line item for that. Like last night we saw, I think fire had a $10,000 deductible listed in theirs. So what is the difference between this? Is that, how does that work? Basically, who is in this 50,000?
So back in 2004, my office crafted a policy called the cost allocation program. And what that did was it took the total premium that I budgeted for and spread it out amongst the departments so that the departments had some accountability for that line item. So what this represents is any department that's not covered under the cost allocation program and or just general policies that we don't allocate out to the specific departments.
Okay, that's great. I like that that's split out like that because I think it's more reflective of each department's budget. So that's good. My only other question, I noticed here that Board of Ed is $877,570, and that's in the general government budget, not in the Board of Ed budget. Is that typical that would appear here? There's several things. I think we already mentioned one before where it's Board of Ed and it's in the general government budget. So it's kind of hard to get a picture of, if I'm trying to look at Board of Ed spending and then there's $877,000 here, that's obviously a large amount of money that's their expenditure. So is the town paying that for the Board of Ed?
Yeah, so historically, which as long as I've been here and predates me, the town has always budgeted for that, and we do pay those bills directly. We ultimately control that money. The Board of Education does not.
Okay, and the reason for that is just historically that's what we've always done?
The previous administration had decided that's how they wanted to carry that money.
Okay.
So that's always resided on my side of the ledger.
Okay. Would you have an issue with that going to the Board of Ed side, or?
Yes.
You would? Okay, and what would that reason be?
Well, the overall control, so if they have a budgeted number, they can budget a number, but they're not obligated to pay that premium.
Correct, okay.
So this way here, we ensure that the bills get paid, and ultimately the control lies with one department that can oversee the entire program.
Understood, makes sense. Thank you. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions on this item? Mr. Schreiber, I just have a general question for you. So obviously the property casualty market is pretty rough right now, and we've seen some precipitous increases over the next few years. Do you have any idea from the consultant if we expect to see this turn around at any point?
So we're in constant contact with them in regards. I don't think that people understand that the external market forces that are in the entire industry do affect us locally. And so we try to mitigate that with a number of different ways through loss control programs or different programs. They do market the program vastly for us to see if we can take advantage of any of that. And so we are always looking at different ways of possibly reducing those increases as they come through. Again, adding particular buildings, we did add 2 properties to the schedule this year, so that in itself will increase the property line item.
So, and I'm not real familiar with commercial property. If we have major renovation projects in buildings, does that potentially improve our lot with insurance?
So it's a double-edged sword because we routinely review the actual valuation of the buildings to make sure that we are insuring them to the proper level. So when they are redone, that does increase some potential for their value to increase.
Right.
So
Okay,
we
yeah.
pool, it's a pooled number that we use for our property, so, and that includes the utilities as well.
Thank you very much. Councilor Tata?
I'm sorry, one more thing I just thought of. I'm assuming we insure all buildings in town that we own despite who's occupying the buildings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Do you have any other questions for me?
So the contingency,
Yep.
did you have any, I believe there were items in the contingency related to HR? And if not, then we're all set. Hang on just a second, Jeff. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor.
we have the tax assessor here as well, and I'm just wondering if there would be any questions with respect to his department.
I don't see anything on the agenda that would indicate that. Does anyone have questions for the tax assessor? Okay, thank you very much.
And my questions for contingency are not, Mr. Hutt or...
Okay, so none of the contingency questions are related to your department, so thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, so next, we'll move on to contingency. Councilor Tata?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is page 64. The first thing I noticed was that we don't have numbers for expended of fiscal year ended 6/30/24 or expended 25. I'm not sure, was there a reason that wasn't there?
Contingency by nature is not spent. It gets transferred to the appropriate account.
Okay, so if I wanted to look back and see, last year we put in, let's just say we put in $500,000 and we ended up transferring out $300,000 during the year, we would have had $200,000 left. How would I find out how much we used of that?
On the monthly reports I give you, if you look at the contingency line item, the budget will be reduced, but it will never be spent. You can't spend it out of contingency. It has to go to the proper account.
Right, so there's transfers out of contingency into whatever account we.
Correct.
Correct, so how would I know then what was transferred out of that account in a year?
Take the original budget and subtract out the revised budget.
So would you be able to get me that number? I think what I'm trying to say is if let's say in the budget last year, we said $500,000 of contingency, and then we didn't spend any of that, but it went back to the general fund, then I'm trying to see how much historically we've spent of that.
Well, wait, if I can interject for a second. So if you could look at our budgets, though, every month we have transfers for different things. And if you look at, especially the June budgets, there's a lot of transfers in and out of contingency, because we get revenue from other places that end up going into contingency, correct?
No, revenue doesn't go into contingency.
But-
I can get you the numbers. You want to know what was left in contingency for how many years?
Would 5 years be asking too much?
No, that's fine. So right in the current year, though, you're not going to see money out of the accrued wages for a reason, and transfer is going to be coming soon. So we had projected settled contracts last year, so the money wasn't in the departments. We've got to move that money in.
Yes.
I do not do that right away, because if the department doesn't need the money and I put the money in there, then they start going, oh, my salary line has X amount of money, and then they start trying to transfer it out and do other stuff. So that's probably the first meeting in May,
Okay.
or maybe I'll wait till the second meeting in May, because the first meeting in May is probably going to be the budget. We'll make those transfers, but there is salary that currently has to get moved from contingency into the proper line items.
Okay, that makes sense. And when you give me the numbers, if you don't want to include the current year, that's fine. I'm just kind of looking for a history, so that makes sense. So my next question, which you kind of just brought up, so there's two lines that make up contingency. There's the general purposes, and then there's the accrued expenses. the accrued expenses, I'm assuming is.
That's
tho-
HRs.
those-
That's
yeah.
HRs.
But that's what you were just saying. Those are the wages, the
Right,
contract.
so without getting into contractual, they're negotiating these contracts. So there's 2 contracts out that they're out as of 6/30/20. So there's a full year, they projected when this contract's settled, the year we're in is a full year of raises. And then now you have to do the next year because so that's why that number is so high, it's 2 years of these 2 contracts. So, and to be honest with you, the number was higher, and I kind of asked, we kind of trimmed it down a little bit, so hopefully that is enough.
Okay, and that you're specifically speaking to line 58821?
Right, so the 1.2 million.
Okay.
Jim's calculations were a little bit higher than that, and, I said, we can't do that, we gotta go. Let's go with this number, so, fingers crossed.
Okay,
And then the other one, we're at a $270 million budget. We got $300,000 to adjust on the fly. That's not very high.
okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Anyone else on this topic? Okay, moving on to mayor. Councilor Chetta? Sorry.
That's right, I assumed. Thank you. Evening again, Mr. Mayor. The part-time, looks like there's a new part-time position. Can you just explain what that position is?
Is that the one at the bottom of the?
On page 15, it shows part-time and then Department Request 1, Mayor 1, and then it looks like on the following page, it looks like it's the bottom one. It just says part-time.
So we have a part-time employee who is working on clearing out our archives. She does cover phones at times if both of the administrative aide and the secretary are not in the office. She does similar work for other departments in terms of going through, there's a fair amount of purging to be done. There's a lot of paper that dates back to my birth. And she's really done quite a bit in terms of purging what can be purged and in some other organizational functions that really, they've helped us, they've helped program planning. I think she spent some time in the clerk's office with a project. So she does float a bit, but she stops into our office on the way in every morning that she works.
Okay, and this is a scheduled employee, there's set hours, it's a
Yes.
schedule, okay. And then you anticipate this being a permanent part-time employee?
The end of the work is probably, will probably take us through next year.
Okay, all right. Just while we're on that page, I just wanted to give just kind of a thanks to you, but also to your office. Your office staff has been great, so very efficient, and I know I end up kind of bothering them sometimes for stuff, but they've been phenomenal. So.
So I'll take the opportunity to say that we are three people in that office new to our positions. And while Corey had been the executive secretary prior to becoming administrative aide, she had only been there a few years. So all things considered, the relative, I'm not going to say lack, but potential for a gap of institutional knowledge, I think we're doing pretty well. And I'm I'm not one to brag, but I'm pleased with the hires.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Corey specifically has been just very efficient, gets back to me right away, pleasant, friendly. So you have a great staff in there. Oh, the office furniture. So I know there's nothing in this budget, but that has all been purchased, expended. That's all. I mean, it looks great. I've been in there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We still have some furniture that dates back to the 80s. I think the wooden file cabinets in the mayor's office proper. But, we replaced some chipboard furniture that really was at the end of its useful life.
Yeah.
I think our conference table got repurposed somewhere. But yeah, no, the furniture that was replaced was in need of replacing. The desk that I sit at, I couldn't get all the drawers to work.
Yeah.
So,
No, it was, yeah. It was time. But that was last year. That money's all.
yeah, we
Expended
don't
or-
foresee that type of replacement anytime soon.
Great. Okay. Those were the only questions I had. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else on this topic? Before we move on, I'd also like to say Corey and Dawn in your office have been fantastic to work with. It's just super nice people, great attitudes, and very efficient. So now I'll find out if Corey watches the meeting, because she'll have to mention her shout out.
Thanks for saying that, and in case they didn't watch, I will make sure to let them know.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to finance. Councilor Tata.
Yes. I'm just going to believe it's page 20. Yes. Well, it's a lot of pages, but it starts on 20. All right. I'm actually going to start on page 21. Line 56600. I feel like I ask about this every year, but then it looks like it went away for a few years, but now it's back. So microfilming is just
So
happening.
it is, believe it or not, after we're done paying all the bills, about 15 bankers boxes like this. So we're running out of room. So to get rid of them, we need to microfilm because I have to save them. So we were caught up, and then we're a little behind. So I'm hoping this will take care of 2 years of it.
Okay. In the microfilm.
Without really microfilming, they put it on a flash drive. That was
Okay. That's what I was just going to ask. It's not actually microfilm.
microfilm.
Okay. All right. That's just what they account line. That was my next question. All right. Line 56720, purchase services data process. So it looks like you had kind of a somewhat large expenditure there, but then not this year. Is that?
So let me explain how that works. So as they said last night that the IT people were moved into the IT budget. So it used to work in reverse. They were our IT people, so we would have to pay the electric division for that through proportionate charges. So somehow I was the lucky individual who paid for that. So that now kind of got reversed. We're not paying for them anymore, we're charging them.
Okay.
So I look like a hero because my budget went down, but it didn't really.
All right. So yeah, I understand. So that works. Operating expenses, line 58735. So it looks like it's a little, your current expenditure seems fairly low, but I know that certainly could be because there's things that are not split out equally over 12 months. Is that what's happening there?
So that's, I've got 4 divisions in the mailroom. So that's, the mailroom machines are 28,000. Postage for the tax bills, there's bank courier fees, there's supplies, and then just, miscellaneous stuff. And everything is going up.
Mm-hmm.
So, price of stamps went up, all materials are going up. But what we normally would do is, at the end of the year, if there's money in there, we'll load up the postage machine.
Okay. Got it. So basically, so when we look at the expended column, I mean, this, for lack of a better terms, you're basically on a cash basis. That's like what's actually expended. as of that point in that column. So if a major bill comes in May, that would be reflected later on.
Correct, and that we're not, the tax, mailing of the tax bills is gonna happen in June.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's gonna be a big bill.
Okay, that makes sense. I know we've been talking about direct deposit and online bill pay is coming. Do you know as of yet, is that going to result in efficiencies in your office, or not your office, but in the finance department as a whole, where we would be able to save positions? Because I'm just thinking that there's somebody reconciling hundreds of paychecks every week and things like that, where it might be more efficient. Is that anything you foresee happening in the coming year?
That would be the hope, not the coming year. I mean, our office is so busy right now with various projects that I would love to snap my fingers and make everything happen. It's just physically impossible. It's the same employees that are doing it. So right now, will Invoice Cloud make it more efficient? Eventually, yes. But the stuff still needs to be reconciled. So reconciling payroll checks is really not a big deal. The bank does that for you. They send us a file.
Okay.
Our goal is to get to direct deposit, but I've only got 2 payroll people, and they have to crank out a weekly payroll every week, and they're working on some other projects right now. So my goal is to at least get the pensioners soon, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
But I would think it's going to take a couple of years because, just Invoice Cloud, hopefully it goes live and we do it, but not everyone's going to use it. So until it completely shifts, it's the same amount of work. It's actually, we're adding more work because instead of just doing what we normally do, now the money's coming electronically, but we still have to make sure it hits the right accounts and gets posted properly. So it's still the same amount of work. It's just a different format. But I mean, I'm not going to have people sit there doing nothing. We will reprogram them, or we'll figure something out.
Okay. And then, I apologize if you've already answered this. I haven't gone through the emails yet, but open positions, if you already answered it, I can look through my email. I don't need you to.
I don't mind answering it.
Okay.
So I have one open position because today was her last day. So I have one in tax, but we've already gone through the whole process.
Okay.
And she's walking, on May 22nd, she's coming in.
Okay.
So I do have money in this budget for that position. I did not start the process. I don't want to give it up yet, but I'm hoping with some of the efficiencies with Munis that if we roll it out to the departments, that maybe this position won't be needed. But as of now, that's the only one I have open.
Just the one.
It's funded, but I did not start the process yet.
Okay. Great. Thank you. That is all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else on this topic? Moving on to general fund revenue.
Can we do debt service first
Moving on to debt service.
before we switch gears?
A long day. All right, sorry, this is page 22. So my question here, and I think I've seen it on the following pages, but the new police department bonding, that's, I'm assuming that's now reflected in this budget, and about how much is that annually?
All right, so I kind of figured that's what your question was going to be. So far, we've bonded $23,674,074 for the police station project. We still have to bond the rest of it, which hopefully soon. Keeps getting pushed down a little bit. So that's how much we've bonded. So in these numbers here, 1.1, so we bonded two times. So one was a big amount, one was a little. Combined, in the principal portion of this, 1,183,000 is attributed to the new police station. And for interest, $927,060 is in the interest line.
Okay, and that is only for what's already been bonded.
Correct.
So if we do more bonding and then,
But we have to do more bonding.
yeah, so when we do the more bonding to pay the bills, did we budget for that in here or no?
I estimated in my numbers, I took what I know that we have to pay. And I'm assuming, so I estimated that when I bond, I was gonna do $13 million, which would be the police station, I think one of the boilers and the 4 Fairfield Boulevard. So I estimated if I do $13 million at 20 years, that'd be $650,000. So I've added $650,000 into what I know we have to pay.
Okay, great. That's basically what I was getting at. I want to make sure that that's,
And then for interest, I did the same thing. I did the 13 million times, I just used 4%, and I added that to what is known.
okay.
And then the 250 in the new debt financing, that's kind of, if I'm off, that's where I would go to take that money.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
I can also use that money for, if something came up, we could transfer that somewhere else to pay for something in an emergency instead of using debt for it.
Yep, got it. So basically, the police station, without the additional bonding we still need to do, it's over $2 million a year, principal and interest, just where we stand right now, and we still have to issue how much more in bonds? 13 million?
So premium gets involved, so I would say it's probably gonna be around $12 million.
Okay. So that's, I just think that's an important number to note I know we're looking at projects. There's been a lot of talk of bonding, but that's adding a large amount to our, that's gonna be.
Correct, so bonding spreads the expenditure over the 20 years, but it does cost more because you gotta pay the interest.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't create the spikes. So, and, we do not like to bond rolling stock because it doesn't last that long. So, you're paying for it when it's out of service.
Makes sense. Okay, that was what I had on police. And then out of this page, so the grand total that the taxpayers pay in bonding, the proposed is a little under $6.7 million per year. Do you know about how much of that is Board of Ed bonding? Because I assume that's included in this as well, correct?
Yeah, actually, if you go to
Yeah, I should just
page,
look at that.
if you go to the Board of Ed, you go to page 66. There's a memorandum page there. I'm sorry, I'm probably not talking to the mic. There's a memorandum page there that shows what the general government side is paying on behalf of the Board of Ed.
Oh, perfect. And then that pension that we were talking about before, that's in there too.
Correct.
Actually, I have this page highlighted and I forgot it was here, so thank you. Okay, so total in the general government budget that belongs to Board of Ed, in the proposed budget is $6.7 million.
Correct.
Okay. And that, just for the benefit of anyone listening, that's made up of principal on bonds for the schools, interest on bonds for the schools, the non-certified pension contribution, which we were discussing earlier, property and casualty insurance we discussed earlier, and the school resource officers, which I believe are paid through the police department budget?
Correct.
Okay. So that's what makes up that $6.7 million that's Board of Ed spending, but that's paid from the general government budget. All right, thank you very much for that. That was all I have for debt service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Sena. Appreciate it.
Anyone else on this topic? We're moving on to general fund revenue. Councilor Tata.
So I believe this is pages 9 through 12. Okay, so starting on page 9, there's page 9, section 2, Roman numeral 2. There's pilots and other taxes. I just want to kind of go through these. I think most of them are self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure I understand what they all are. So there's a pilot for McKenna Court, Ashler. The Covanta one is done now. That's out of there.
Yeah, I should have taken that line out.
No, that's okay. I think they usually linger for a few years, right? I guess let me lump them. So McKenna Court, Olbrich Heights, there's housing ones in there that they pay a pilot because, is that paid through the state? Who's paying that?
It's kind of tied to the water and sewer. So that there is a formula for that.
Okay. But those are housing,
It's the housing authority.
Okay,
We don't tax them, so it's a calculated pilot.
Is the reason we don't tax them is because it's, those are town owned or no? Or those are owned by the housing authority?
I believe they're owned by the housing authority,
Okay,
but I'm not 100% sure on that one.
okay. So basically, if we did charge tax, who would, I'm trying to figure out the history of why there is no tax. Is that if the housing authority, which is the town, owns them, then the town would basically be paying it, taking money from itself to give back to itself? Is that the rationale there?
It's before my time, but I believe it's something in that line.
Well-
It's a nonprofit, so you can't tax them, but they agree to give us a payment.
What we're learning, so we've been approached with respect to repurposing the old Genesis property on Kondraki. What we're learning is that typically with public housing or low-income housing or variable income housing, there's a pilot negotiated instead of the typical assessed tax formula.
Okay, so these were negotiated when they were built.
There's a formula for the housing authority pilot payments.
Okay,
There's an agreement and a formula.
okay, understood. Ashler Village, we know what that is. That was because of we know the history there. Transco, that's 605,000. What is, I'm not familiar with that.
Transco is a power company.
Okay.
So I think
Oh,
it's
was
the
that the
old
Pierce?
Pierce plant.
The
yeah.
Pierce plant, okay, yes, okay. I know what that is. There's a line item 41110, pilot for college and hospitals. We don't have anything on that line item. Did we at one point?
Yes, so
Okay.
the state used to break that out, and now they just give us one amount, so that's in the, so now all that's part of the 41114. The pilot state-owned property.
Uh-huh.
They just give us that amount. They don't break it out by whether it's schools or whatever. They used to break it, they used to say, this is for schools, this is for hospitals. Now they just say, this is ours, they just give us one number.
So what comprises that? What are they paying us?
That's just, the state tells us, we don't know. That's what their formula gives us.
So would that be basically in place of, so I know there's the state law that you can't charge, like for educational or hospitals, does the state then give you money to offset that? Is that what that is?
No, this is, if the state buys property, so that's taking it off our tax rolls, they're supposed to give us, they are supposed to pay us for that, but then they don't fund it. So, when the program first started, they would pay you 70% of it. Now you're lucky if they're paying you 30% of what they owe you. And it's a formula. So when the governor's budget comes out, I get sent a page telling us what the revenues are.
Okay.
And so
But this isn't tied to specific properties, though?
It might be at the state level, but they don't give us that information. They just tell us how much we're getting.
All right, that's interesting. All right, it's $507,000, so I'm not complaining. I would just love to know what the justification of it is or how they're coming to that.
It's part of their formula grants.
Okay.
Same thing with the ECS. It all
Yeah.
comes, that's how I get the ECS number, that's how I get this number.
Okay. Just going through the list here. All right, I think that's all I have for that page. On page 10, line 44060, I believe I asked you this last year, and I assume the list is the same, but that's rent of town property. It looks like our revenue is $55,404. Do you recall what properties that is? I know some we let use buildings for
And that's the
nominal.
$4.
That's the $4, correct? Yep.
I can get you that information.
Okay, if you,
I don't-
I'm
I
assuming
don't
it's the
wanna
same list
guess.
as last year, but
It's two properties. So I can get you that. I
okay.
don't know off the top of my
I
head.
appreciate that, because I know the ones that we let use the properties, I know the Scow and STEM building is one, correct? And that's a nominal fee, and then
The library,
the library, yep.
the senior center, and the daycare.
And which one?
The daycare.
Oh, yes, okay, yep. Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you do have the others, that would just be helpful. The only other thing on that page I noticed, the bottom line, total state grant and aid, that went down by about, 1.2 million this year? So that's not a good thing, so just another, I just wanted to make a note of that, we lost quite a bit there. On page 11,
So that difference is, there's a municipal sharing grant. Sometimes they fund it, sometimes they don't. So in 6/30/2024, they funded it in fiscal year end 23 and 24, which we didn't budget for. When I was trying to make the budget for the 24-25, talking to the CCM people without them telling me, they, wink, wink, told us, you're not getting that this year, so that's why I didn't fund it.
okay,
Yeah, we got a bump for like 2 years, but it's gone.
so it's.
It could come back, it all depends on.
It'll be a pleasant surprise if it does, but, okay. On page 11, I don't think I have questions on this page, but, because we talked about it last night already, but, I had just made note of so we charge for certain services in town, and the ones that kind of stand out that were the big ones were the ambulance.
So I got good news on the ambulance. So I was talking to Chief Buck today, and I didn't take into account that extra run that they added recently. So you guys can probably bump that up about $200,000.
Perfect.
Which,
Yeah, he seemed to be alluding to that last night too, so that's great. So the ambulance brings in 2.5 million in revenue that we can hopefully safely say 2.7 at this point.
correct. And then once we get better data, we'll hone that in. And that's a net number. So they might bill 6 million, but the collections and stuff, I can't have the ins and outs on the budget. So we try to guess what's the actual cash that's coming in. That's how we come out with that number. Because on the accounting side, when I book the receivable, I debit the accounts receivable and I credit deferred revenue. So it's a wash.
Yeah,
So we show that they owe it to us, but we also show that we don't have it.
yeah.
So,
Well, it looks like you're almost spot on if you look at the prior year and then where you are this year. it looks like that'll probably be about,
Yeah, we try, you know.
Your
I
projection
try to
seems like
look-
it's accurate.
Look back at,
Yeah,
3
yeah.
years of history and, for the big numbers, I talk to the department heads and say, hey, do you know of any big projects? Should we bump this up or not?
and police, same thing. So police brings in you're projecting or proposing 782.
So that's the police extra duty and the car rentals.
Yep. And again, that looks like you're pretty close to the,
That number came from them.
okay, perfect. Okay.
And then I'll direct you while we're on this page. There was a big jump in the proportionate charges.
Where is that? I'm sorry?
So that's
Oh, the bottom of the page.
bottom. So what that is that water, sewer, and electric have to pay their own. They're supposed to pay everything on their own dime. So any services that they use that we do, we bill back to them. So this number really hasn't been trued up in about 15 years. So the utilities asked us to true it up. And I said, you might not like the results. And it worked out in our favor. So, probably 20 years ago, someone came up with a method to do that, and we've probably been adding 3 or 4% a year. We've got backup to these numbers, and we'll continue to kind of true it up. So I'll give props to the deputy controller for doing that project. So basically, we've calculated of the human resources department, 206,116 between water, sewer, and electric. They owe us that amount.
Okay. Great. That is all I have for that section. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Senna.
Anyone else in the general fund revenue? All right, and so the last one was a general question about the telephone.
Yes, that was also me. I don't know if Mr. Mayor, if Mr. Senna, if you could speak to this, but I know we spoke a little bit about it tomorrow night, but it just seems to me as I'm going through each department that the telephone line seems awfully high. Now I know there's certain departments that have their own systems like we spoke about last night, but as a whole, it just seems like it just seems very high to me. What's the system or is there a reason why, or are we looking for a new system? Just any background you could give would be helpful.
So it's kind of helter-skelter because you're dealing with cell phones, right? So in an ideal world, we would, we're probably, I think we've had discussions on it, is maybe we should try to have one department rein this in and go say, hey, we want 50 phones of Verizon and try to do that. But the previous administration, the department head would say, hey, I need a cell phone. And then they get permission to get a cell phone and they would just go do their own thing. So that's in that line. I think you've got the internet probably is in some of them. So like when you're looking at fire, they've got devices out in the field that, it's cellular service. When you look at it, the telephone, it's because it's anything cellular is getting built into that, right? So they have iPads in the field that they need something to connect to. So it's something we can look into. It's kind of deceiving, but the more objects we add, the more pages, and it's so maybe a better description, but I do believe, it's probably going to be, we will take a deep dive in at some point to try to see if we can get everybody on the same provider.
Okay, that's helpful. I think the way you just explained it, maybe it's more of just the heading that's throwing me, because I know even police last night were saying like his fiber runs are listed under telephone, which is obviously very expensive, but it's not really telephone.
Right. So these objects in the budget are been here forever, and times have changed. So.
Like microfilming, yeah. All right, that makes me feel better though, that it's not purely telephones in that line. Thank you. That was my only question on that.
Anyone else on this one? Oh, okay. All right. Questions on something else?
Sorry, and I didn't submit this before or anything. Government TV, the background behind the manager position.
So the department has been operating on all part-timers. What we're finding is that while Mr. Caneschi is kind enough to be the lead in the department, he really doesn't want this to be more than a part-time job. And I think we have 5 or 6 part-timers at this point. There is a lot of administration that's going by the wayside. We actually have PURA reporting obligations that we really need somebody with expertise to comply with. And we are also missing grant funding opportunities. And, by way of example, we were able to purchase the audio equipment for the council chambers with an ARPA grant. There are other pieces of equipment that need to be updated or upgraded or kept current with for a variety of reasons. And in order to write those grant specifications, while we do have a grant coordinator, she does not have the specific expertise that you need to fill out the technical portions of a grant application. And just by and large, the operation is running okay. There seems to be more of an interest in information from the public through the government TV, the YouTube channel, and just to keep up with the whole juggling all the balls, having 2 part-timers trying to manage that is really proving to be a situation where we're experiencing lost opportunities that we need to stay on top of.
Because I agree, everything's been running really well, at least from our perspective, my perspective anyway. Do we think, so it's listed at 83,000. Do we think there are grant opportunities available that would kind of get us back the 83,000 in equipment equivalency? Like, what are we, that's what I'm trying to pick out of all the, the years, and it's been going well, it's not broken. I understand it sounds like there's a desire to kind of do something a little more advanced. I think we're all just kind of looking for ways to understand what's going on. So I'm trying to wrestle, I guess, with the idea that do we pay somebody 83,000 and what are we getting back? Like, are we going to get grants? Are we going to get $60,000 in grants to pay for equipment when it could be cheaper to just pay $40,000 for new equipment and somebody else 20-something thousand to write the PURA specification as another assistant? That's all. I was wondering where it came from, I guess.
Yeah.
And
additionally, between Tom Caneschi and Susan Schott, they are managing the scheduling.
Right.
There are times that, while we've scheduled some of the part-timers, that their operation to record a meeting doesn't end up fully staffed for any variety of reasons. There are times that one of the part-timers runs up against exceeding the 19 and a half hours weekly. If that continues to be a problem, or if it continues to occur, it could turn into a problem where we then have to treat that employee like a full-time employee. And then suddenly we have the expense associated with a full-time employee.
That answers the basics of my question, so it's good enough for now. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Senna?
Separate comment, but in my budget, I did put in there for budget software to get a prettier product for you guys. So we did not discuss that, but that is in my budget.
Much appreciated.
So, and we're closed Friday and I'm off tomorrow, so I'll get you your answers next week if that's okay. And if you don't mind, if you could email me the questions, so this way I definitely don't forget. Thank you.
All right, questions from the public? Mrs. Shardula? And please limit it to the topics we've discussed tonight. There'll be another opportunity at the public hearing, to ask your questions of the department heads.
Yes, Paul Shardillo, 2 Bayberry Drive. Yeah, my questions and comments have to do with they're all listed here. So I'm assuming I can question on that, right? Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you mean, but go ahead and we'll take them one by one.
As an example, one of the issues I wanted to raise is I wanted to ask either the mayor or probably Mr. Senna why we need a contingency fund in the budget. Now that's listed, contingency. So that's what I'm looking for. Do we really need a contingency fund? And
Do we
isn't
need a
the-
contingency? Yes.
Okay.
So
Why-
for flexibility, because when we make these budgets,
Yeah.
4 months in advance, things happen, and you need to be able to adjust.
Okay. Well, let me respond to that. I don't agree with that, and here's why. I think we already have a contingency fund. It's called the surplus. That's one. So if you need money during the year, I don't understand why you can't come to the council and ask them for it. And that's where they allocate the funds. The surplus fund is over, the unaudited portion is over by about 2 million, right? I think in the mayor's letter, you said it was 22 million, 10% of the budget's 20. So the money's there to be used. I understand what you're saying about things happen. The second reason I don't think, and so basically what we're doing is by putting it in the budget.
Wait,
That
Mr.
goes
Shardullo, so this isn't public comment. This is a question and answer. You asked the question, he answered it.
I thought it was a workshop.
This is a workshop. This is a council
Okay.
workshop. So you're welcome to go on to the next question.
No, I'm not going to the next question.
I'm sorry?
I am not, I want an answer to this question.
You
Is
asked
this
him
a
a question,
workshop or
do we need a
not?
contingency? He answered the question.
No, he didn't. Well, you didn't
Sir.
allow me time to respond.
Sir,
No, sir. You have not given me time to respond. You're not going to shut me down simply because you don't want to hear what I have to say. And I guess I'll
Mr.
appeal to the
Shardullo.
mayor.
Mr.
Mayor,
Shardullo.
Yeah.
You are out of order, sir.
No, I don't
Yes,
think I am.
you are. I'll adjourn the meeting and we'll go home.
Okay, go right ahead.
Now, I want to give you the opportunity to answer your questions. Ask your
Okay,
questions.
well, let me finish.
However, we've heard this several times before, right? So I understand you don't like the contingency.
No, you haven't heard it
You
several
asked
times
the question,
before.
he answered it.
You're not giving me a chance to have an interaction with the controller. I guess I'll appeal to the council. Am I being treated properly here? I'm a tax-paying resident at a workshop, and you're telling me I can't talk to the controller
I didn't
about
say
an
you couldn't
issue?
talk to him. I said you asked the question, which he answered.
No, he did not. He answered it, and we're having a back and forth, just like Vice Chair Christina has. Back and forth. That's how you discuss an issue, and you come to a resolution, or you come to an understanding.
So at a prior meeting, Mr. Senna had offered to meet with you to discuss these topics, correct?
Listen, I don't want to go into that. I'm not here to denigrate anybody. I'm trying to get a simple answer to some concerns that I have as a tax-paying resident who's looking at a 50% increase in taxes. I have a right to come here. It's the freedom of information, freedom of conversation.
So this is a council.
You're trying to shut me down.
I'm not trying to shut you down. I'm trying to
Okay,
get
well
you
then
to move on.
stop. Let me talk to him.
So,
Mr.
Mr.
Leonard.
Shardullo, you're done. Have a seat. I am shutting you down. You are way out of order.
No, I'm not. I think
The
you're out
council
of
wants to
order.
appeal my decision. They're welcome to.
I think you're out of order, Mr. Brown.
Thank you very much. Have a
Is
good
there-
evening, sir.
I wish that we had our attorney here tonight.
Are there any other questions from the public?
Okay,
kindly
I'll
approach.
defer to this gentleman. He can have the mic.
Thank you.
But I resent what you're doing. You're shutting down a public workshop question and answering session. You have not given me time to respond to Mr. Senna. Am I correct, sir? No. Okay. So, bottom line on
Mr. Shardullo,
contingency fund.
you're out of order.
taxing
The other gentleman has the
1.9.
floor.
The council should banish it. You'll reduce the taxes by $1.9 million. You have a surplus.
Thank you, sir.
We come in every year underspent by $3 to $7 million. Why do you need a contingency fund?
Good evening. My
Good
name is
evening.
Tom Knight. I live on Brookview Avenue. Just a couple of quick comments.
Please.
I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your quick response to come to the senior center last week. And although I didn't hear everything I wanted to hear because my taxes are going up 16% too, and I'm not happy about it, but I know you guys are all working hard on that. One of the things that came up at that talk, the Q&A.
I'm sorry, Mr. Knight, if you could just speak into the microphone. They're not
Okay.
picking you up on TV.
One of the things that came up at the Q&A at the senior center was the mention of Mary Mushinsky's House Bill 6804 regarding the possible taxation of Choate and like enterprises. How do I find out? I went to the site and actually wrote an email to Mary, encouraging it. But how do I find out the status of it, where it sits? Is it in process?
So you're talking about the status of the piece of legislation?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you go onto the state webpage, I don't have the House bill number handy, but I
I have
know.
it's 6804.
Okay.
But okay.
So on the state legislature webpage, you can follow the progress of the bill.
Yeah, okay, I gotta look harder. Also, earlier there was conversation about praise for your staff, and I echo that because I stop in your office occasionally because every department in this building, I get nothing but cooperation when I come here, and I don't always see that at other towns. I see a lot of abruptness and curt answers and things like that. So, my hat's off to the staff here, all of you people. Also, when can we get this fixed so we can seat people in there? The balcony.
That is a building code challenge.
Yeah.
It was, 1917 it was built, and the building code was very different than it is now. It has to do with the steepness of it and the proximity of the seating. It was designed for a different time. So that presents a challenge that I'm not sure how we get around.
Yeah, it's too bad because it's, I think for the things that they have here that attract the crowd, that would enhance it. It's a nice feature. So, okay, but thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Sir?
Hi, Dave Perillo, 40 Jody Drive, Wallingford. I lived here 32 years, and our taxes have been going up every year. And it seems that everybody gets what they want. I see Public Works need a loader, $350,000, that they just got a new one. So why do we need another one? There's other things that are on the list that we didn't negotiate with anybody. We said, okay, it's there, it's written. I know the mayor went through it. We should be holding back some of that stuff. Some of that stuff could wait another year, give the tax people a little break instead of falling 19%, what you're trying to say, on households. And I don't get why, if you look in your budget, only 30% went up in this industry tax, okay? You got them using more of the roads, more of their equipment, okay, heavy equipment that are going all over this road, okay? We don't get any services of trash pickup because you want to have the contractors pick up our trash because they make money. Hamden has a pickup, North Haven has a pickup. It's in their town taxes, and they're lower. And we've got a lot of regulations that we don't let people build. So if you look at it, this town has been stagnant because people were complaining, well, I don't want this there, I don't want that there, or you can't build this there. There's no growth in this town. I don't see it. The only growth I see is near the church over there, which they're building 2 buildings over there, and they don't look too good. next to the church. So we need some type of growth in this town. You know, we advertise it, but we don't get it, and the taxes every year seem to go up. That's what I'm complaining about. The taxes do not stay, you know, for the last, I've been here, like I say, 32 years, and they have been going up. And that 19%, I'm probably looking, you know, 19% on my taxes. I keep my house well. I'm on a corner. The Public Works plows snows against my sidewalk all the time because it's a corner. I complain to them because it's full of ice. And they go, it's not our problem. Well, why can't you move it out to the side? And then we got the Public Works. They're zooming down the street to make time. Another one, I see we got 25 trucks in the Public Works, a line item, and we want another plow. Do we really need that plow this year? No, that's like a $300,000 truck. If we got 25, or we got, it says the line item is 25, we got to look over the stuff and try to cut some of these things at least till next year, if someone could wait. You know, there's just frivolous stuff that we don't need right away if we're going to go after the residents and try to make the taxes more enjoyable each year instead of all at once. That's all I say. You know, and, you know, everything's tough nowadays between tariffs and everything going up. I know food costs, you see all the food costs go up. I'm a senior. I do not get an increase, only Social Security. I don't get, my pension doesn't increase, not an increase. All right? So, you know, there's no increase for me. You know, so when taxes go up, you know, and, you know, how many people do we have in this town? 45,000? That's been like that for the last 30 years. And right now, half of them are seniors in this town. We got a school system, we got 16,000 kids, we got 2 schools, and those schools must be empty on the classrooms. Why can't we use those classrooms for something else? Why do we need a Board of Education that needs a building near Oakdale? Why? That's cost. We used to have the Board of Education in Sheen. Why not? We must have the room. So this is all costs that you're saying line items, it's going against the town, not with the Board of Education. Why? Because we're just giving everybody what they want. Someone has to go out there and say, do we need this? Do we need this lease that we're out in Oakdale? And can we put them back in this school system? You know? And then someone says on a new school, we need 30 to 40 acres to build a new school. Well, there is a site right where our school is. The church down the street is probably going to get rid of that church, and you could expand Sheen down that street. I'm sure they would take the money because they're, you know, people that go to church now are low. So you do got spaces, and you could be a second floor. I went to Hamden High School. We had over 2,000 kids in our school. We have less and less. But on that high school, if you look at it, they build up on the sides. That high school's been the same since 1950. All right? That same school. They didn't build a new high school. They built a new middle school, all in one, but they didn't build a high school. They added on. So, you know, in some of these schools, you do have room, like I say, and that's going to be another cost as we go through time. I'm just saying these things are going to pile up. New police station. Now that police station building, what are we doing with that? Write it down. We got more parking spaces that are owned by the town that isn't even used, but we take care of them. Well, we down near the train station, we got a parking lot. No one uses that. The people across the street use it and park their cars all the time, where they used to park in their own lot. Now there's parking there, all right? Or it's a staging point for someone working around the town, okay? We take care of all these, we gotta repave them, everything else. If you go in other towns, they have meters collecting money for that. We don't. Middletown has them, you know, New Haven, you go on down there. That's why I don't go to New Haven, you're paying stuff down there. But we have all these things that we're taking on, and it's going on to the taxpayer. And you don't realize it. But, you know, I'm just trying to say is, I've been here watching this town the way it is, and it's always, every year, we gotta raise the taxes up, and, you know, now, I can't blame this mayor. You know, you may blame the last mayor, or the way everything's been running, but it shouldn't be, but he was cutting things in the end. So that 19%, you know, is a hell of a lot. I just hope you people do something about that and try to make it, as the years go on, that you really need all that money right now, or we could save somewhere else. So I think you'd be making taxpayers happy. I know if it doesn't come through like that, you're gonna see the next mayor not be here, the mayor that's here. Because I'm sure everybody's gonna be up in arms. You know, they're gonna say, 1 year I got this mayor in here, and now it went up, and I'm paying this much. I know there's reevaluation, because there's reevaluation, because there's no one building anything in town. Everybody's overpaying the town, yes, because they want to live in Wallingford. But as you get to that point, people are going to say, I can't live here anymore. And like I say, I don't have any more kids going to school, but I like kids that have a nice school, yes. But you're going to get arguments from one, or this and another. And then we took over childcare in the morning for people that we never had. It was a government thing. We got the money from the beginning. Now we don't get the money. All right? So that's another expense been thrown out. I had to work all the time, okay? And I had my wife stay home and watch the kids, okay? I didn't have that stuff. So, but we're paying for it. So all these things that are added on through the government, you know, that we have to do this, we really don't have to do this. You know, this is actually babysitting for people's kids. That's what it is.
So the the Board of Ed will be back at the public hearing on the 28th if you wanted to ask them questions about how they run those programs.
Yeah, I plan on going to that too. You know, my wife was a para. She went through the system for a number of years, and the kids, the behavioral part of the kids is real wrong. All right? There's no behavior. They have more problems with, the kids don't have a behavior, that have a behavior problem. All right? There's a lot out there. There's a lot of single parents, and they go to work, and they expect the school system to do everything, you know? And that's the way society is nowadays. It is. That's where our cost comes from, too, you know? So it's an all-around thing, but, you know, I'm just saying on the tax part of it, I can't, you know, see, you know, maybe I'll move out here. But, you know, I like the place, like I say. I've been here so many years. My wife loves it. She works here. You know, I worked for, you know, a utility myself. Even in utilities, they put in new meters here. Well, how come we couldn't put a transponder in those meters so we didn't have a meter reader run around? Why couldn't we pay for that service to get rid of a person that we have to hire to walk around and read the meters? We put in a new meter. The gas company does it, the electric company does it down in southern Connecticut. Why couldn't we upgrade that to that? We didn't upgrade it to save money. Same thing with this new system we're supposed to put in the computer system here. That's supposed to save money in the end. I hope it does. You know, it's supposed to really eliminate jobs, hopefully, where you don't need as many people. Well, it looks like we're adding people. Because, well, we need someone for this, we need someone for that. So
I appreciate your thoughts, and you're certainly welcome back, you know, to the public hearing to ask the questions of the departments.
I just wanted to get a piece of my mind about it. Sorry to bother you about it, but I just say it's ridiculous to go up 19% in 1 year and shock everybody.
Understood. Thank you so much. Anyone else from the public? Sir? Mr. Shardul, I recognize the gentleman behind you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you weren't coming up. Okay, good. I just want to make a parting comment to you to address a question that you keep directing to me.
Sir, you don't have the floor. Let the gentleman speak. And if you'd like to speak to me afterwards, I'd be more than happy to.
Hi, my name is Bruce Haig. As a former broadcast combat correspondent for the United States Army and somebody who helps out a couple hours a week at the studio down the hill, I'm somebody who's very interested in that full-time government channel position. To address some issue regarding the grant situation, the current grant cycle has recently passed. So they're now on a 2-year cycle, so the next grant cycle will be in September of next year to be paid out the following June. And the limit has been raised to $250,000. So if there's need for equipment, so that's something to keep in mind coming up. Other than that, I don't really have any other information regarding that.
Well, thank you very much.
Paul Shardillo, 2 Bayberry Drive. On the issue of meeting with Mr. Senna, I want to clarify. A couple of weeks before this whole process started, I approached Mr. Senna in the hall, and I asked him if I could meet with him to discuss some issues on the budget. He told me he was very busy during the budget season. I understood that, and to see him after the budget was over. I have issues that are real issues. I believe they have to be discussed. Hey, if you don't want to do anything about it, fine. But I have a right to bring them forward to the council, give you my rationale, you make the decision. And I don't understand why you shut me down here. I thought this was
No, I'd be happy to explain. So at a normal council meeting, we have the public question and answer, which you avail yourself of frequently, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now you come tonight and you want to engage in a debate with the comptroller over his budget philosophy. That's not what this meeting is for. This is a council workshop for the council to ask questions of the departments. We have public comment because I believe that public comment is valuable.
Right.
But you want to rehash the same discussion about that fund. I think it's necessary. The council thinks it's necessary. The comptroller thinks it's necessary. You can have whatever opinion you like, but it's been voted on and decided. So if anyone wants to cut it from the budget, they're more than welcome to make a motion. But I'm not going to have you engage in a debate with the comptroller, and that's why I shut it down. 1. Number 2 was you were extremely rude when I asked you to stop, and you went on some sort of a tear. So that's the reason you got shut down, just so we're all clear.
Okay. Well, let me respond to you.
No, we're done here.
First,
thank you very much.
Now, who's being rude?
Everyone have a lovely evening. This meeting is adjourned.
Listen, basically, okay.